Well, I'm really happy to have today's guest with me on my continuing series of interviews with sales professionals. My guest today is Harry Spaight. He's a keynote speaker, author, and sales coach. After serving in mission work, Harry brought the principles he learned over to corporate sales. Since then, he's been recognized as a multi-million dollar sales producer and sales leader for over 2 decades. Harry is the author of Selling with Dignity, your formula for life-changing sales results. He also has a podcast called Sales Made Easy on the normal podcast channels. He works with entrepreneurs and salespeople to help them to excel in sales and leadership. Harry, it's really great to have you with us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Michael. It's a real honor.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And I'd like to kind of segue from the introduction where we talked about your work in the mission fields to the book. How did you apply what you learned as a missionary to the art of sales?
Yeah, so the idea of sales for some is a person who is in the business of selling. And I've looked at it when I originally read a book when I was leaving the mission field called The Greatest Salesman in the World, written by Og Mandino. And in that book, I saw a lot of similarities between sales and the mission work. It wasn't that I was selling for a profit, but it was really the whole idea of trying to share value with other people and selling a new idea for many. So I figured when I got into corporate sales, that I had sales experience. Not a lot of people saw it as sales experience, mind you, but nonetheless, I felt I had it. And I said, you know what? I can do what I learned in the mission field. It took me a little bit to figure it out, but I applied what I learned in the mission field to the corporate sales and became very successful in doing that.
One thing that you may have learned out in the mission fields that came back to life when you joined a sales team is being rejected. How have
Yeah.
you learned to deal with being rejected? Because I know this is something that a lot of our viewers have to deal with.
Oh my goodness, there is no easy way to deal with rejection. I thought I had enough no's in me to last a lifetime before I got into corporate sales. Then it just exacerbated the whole thing. So I 10x'd the no's in my life, I think. And a lot of people would say, well, you got to get through the no's to get to the yeses. I'm a person that likes people and I want to be liked. That's just my personality. And so when I heard the word no, in the beginning, I took it personally. It's like nobody's interested. They don't want to listen to me. But then over time and through some coaching, I realized it wasn't me they were rejecting. It was the product or the service I was providing. So I took it less personally and I had more fun with it, learning to expect that there was going to be a lot of no's and I just had to get used to it. And even today, I'm not a huge fan of the word no, but it certainly doesn't hurt my feelings, right? I became thicker skinned over time, and I think we all do.
Well, and I think that's the tip right there is that you can't make no's stop coming, but you can make no's stop hurting.
Yeah, exactly. There was a fellow Shad, as in the fish, Shad Helmstetter, and he wrote a book, and he was on Oprah. We actually had him on a podcast dealing with positive self-talk. And he said salespeople have the worst, they have the worst deal because they hear the word no more than anybody, any other career out there. And he says it's fascinating how salespeople typically bounce back. So we didn't bounce back originally, right? I mean, early on, we took it personally and then we started to bounce back. And so as an entrepreneur, people who are just getting out into selling, it's just something we have to deal with. It isn't pleasant, but then we're going to find ways that you can take those no's and still have conversations with people and not take it personally. I'm sure that's what you do. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so. Dan Pink's great book, the To Sell is Human, he talks about buoyancy, that salespeople have to have somewhat of a buoyancy about them, and to me, what it means in the moment is that you just come back up and you just bounce right back up. You know that you can come back, but it is a sense of dusting yourself off and realizing that it's just part of the game, that we're going to get rejected, and if you're not cut out for that, if that's going to be a traumatic experience for you to be rejected more often than not, then you might just choose another profession.
Right.
Professions out there. You don't,
Exactly.
yeah, you don't have
Yeah.
to choose sales.
Well, I liken it to the person who is at a clerk in a, when we used to go to department stores, and they would, if you're in the men's section, someone would come up to you and say, "Can I help you?" And our first response is, "No, I'm all set. No, I'm just looking." So
Mhm.
these people hear the word no all the time and they walk away. So I don't know how disturbed they are, but it's part of what they're used to. And they're still helpful in the store. And if we can kind of adopt a similar mentality and maybe come back with a better question, then can I help you? Then good things will start to happen. But I just get a kick out of how some people just hear no all the time and they're not really getting coached. I don't think too many store clerks are getting coached on dealing with rejection, and they hear it all the time. Every time they ask, "Can I help somebody?"
What are your favorite ways to build rapport with a prospect?
Yeah, so building rapport, I think, is a challenge. Sometimes people try to build rapport way too early, right? So we know that there are different types of buyers out there, and building rapport does not necessarily mean talking about the pictures that they have on the wall. I mean, we've all probably have done it. We say, "Wow, it's an amazing fish. Where'd you catch it?" And they say things like, "This isn't my office. My office was a mess. And so I'm borrowing someone else's office and I don't like to fish." And so now you're stuck in this awkward position. You go, "Oh, okay." So sometimes I think preferably I like to get down to business and understand that people are seeing me and taking time out of their day. And building rapport sometimes means just being respectful to that person's time. After you have your business conversation, then I feel much more relaxed and making sure that they're relaxed. And then I'll ask questions like, "What kind of plans do you have for the weekend?" Or, "Have you lived in the area long?" And then people open up. But there's no hard and fast rule, in my opinion, that you have to build rapport first, right? Show some credibility, get respect, and then maybe build a rapport after you have your meeting. That would be in a business meeting where you're, in someone's office or in a conference room or something like that. But every opportunity is going to be somewhat different. So, thoughts on that? Do you do something similar or?
It's a really refreshing take, Harry. I like to consider that I let the prospect take the lead, in the sense that if the prospect seems to be interested in being chatty for a little bit, then I'll be chatty for a little bit. If they want to get right down to business, then I'll get right down to business. And I probably won't ask them about something that I can see in their office, probably because it's overdone already. I try to be a little
Mm-hmm.
more creative about how I would strike up a conversation if they want to be chatty. And your point about show some credibility, be respectful, mindful of their time. With some people, that is the way to build rapport, just as you've said, because what they're looking for is efficiency and professionalism and preparedness. And that builds rapport by being a salesperson who's on top of their game and wanting to be helpful.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I could go back to a situation years ago where this one really demanding woman, she knew what she wanted, and I could tell she ate salespeople alive. She was not one for small talk. She ran the company, and that wasn't her job to run the company, but I could see talking to her that people weren't giving her what she wanted. And she just said to me, "Here's the deal. This is what I want," and basically make it happen. Well, I ended up getting the business there in a super competitive deal, because I'm pretty sure because I gave the woman what she wanted without mincing words and doing the small talk and trying to bond, all that stuff, I'm sure she was done with. So we got to be careful about that, recognizing personality types and really what people want. And so I love what you said. When they're chatty early, then yeah, by all means, enjoy the conversation, build rapport that way if the opportunity avails itself for it. Yeah, I'm totally into that.
Like it. Yeah. So then when we talk about establishing rapport, then oftentimes once we feel like we've had a chance to get to know the person and we've shared with them what we have to offer as in terms of solution based on their needs, there comes that point where we need to move the sale forward, and we're driven as salespeople to do that. But we try to avoid being seen as pushy because when you speak to audiences and ask them to describe salespeople, usually the number one word that comes to mind is pushy. So, how do you move a sale forward, Harry, without coming across as pushy?
Yeah, I love the approach that I've read about, and the name is going to escape me, but it's in. Well, anyway, the point is that there's really soft ways of moving the sales cycle forward, and I'll give you an example. We were working with this very professional woman recently, and she is a detailed person, and we're bringing up where we were in our sales cycle that the next step we would need another meeting. So instead of just saying, well, let's get together, how about we put it in the calendar? And when we got the calendars out, she's looking at it. And so great, had the meeting. So we needed another next step. And she knew right away. She says, well, let's put it in the calendar. And then this was probably a 5 or 6 meeting opportunity. After the first couple, she was opening up the calendar. She said, okay, let's check the calendar. My availability is. And so she was closing us really for those next steps, which is ideal. So just asking people, and I'm very self-deprecating. I don't mind making fun of myself. And so I'll say things like, for me to remember things these days at my age, I need to put it in the calendar. But no matter what your age is, you could say things like, I am so busy, if it's not in the calendar, I'm sure I'm going to forget. So you mind if we just put it in the calendar? So someone will say is, well, give me a call next week. Okay, I'll give you a call next week. It was a way a lot of people will walk away from that. And, a sales leader will say, well, how did the call go? And they said, well, I told him I'd call him next week. Well, next week has a lot of hours in it, right? And people get frustrated. Salespeople get frustrated when people don't pick up the phone. And so they'll say things like, well, I called the person 5 times. They didn't pick up once. They must not be interested. Well, you could have called 5 times that they were busy in. So instead, just say, next week is a busy week. I'm sure it's going to be busy for you. How about we pinpoint a time where I can call you, and that way you'll expect my call, and that way I won't forget either. And then just narrow down the time and say, even if you say, let's pencil it in, we're not doing that digitally, but it gives the minds the idea that this isn't a pressure thing. It's just to help keep things on track. So that would be one way where you can move the sales cycle forward in a self-deprecating, soft way without necessarily being the pushy, obnoxious, I'm going to call you tomorrow. Why aren't you taking my call? And I've heard people say things like, I've called you 7 times already. Well, it's not the prospect's fault, right? So yeah, there's that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, well, I think the idea of being focused and intentional is what I'm getting there. That I'm not being demanding or pushy, but I'm being focused and intentional, and sharing that if you are interested in this conversation and you would like to continue this conversation, let's be efficient. Let's schedule our next time together rather than be wishy-washy about it.
Right.
There's a book I read called Deep Work from Cal Newport, and I also read his follow-up book, A World Without Email. And one of the big things that I learned from Cal that applies to the world of sales is be really specific. So when you say to someone, "Hey, let's talk next week," well, then when I write back, I say, "Yeah, let's talk next week, and here are 3 times that I'm available.
Mm,
Does one of these work for you?" Rather than the conventional thing, which is writing back and saying, "Yeah, let's do that. When are you available?" And then the other person says, "Well, what do you think about Tuesday afternoon?" No, I'm
yeah.
available on Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 and 3, and Wednesday morning at 1. If none of those times works for you, here's a link to my schedule. Pick a 30-minute session and book it if you don't mind. Let's move this thing forward. So
Nice.
that idea of being focused and intentional, I think, is really important.
Yeah, well said. And it's like you want to make it easy for them, right? Just
Right.
make it easy instead of them thinking, well, you're supposed to call, and then it might be important to them, right? Remember the whole sales cycle and process they're in because they see value in it. If we disappear and we can't reach them, well, that's on us too, right? We could have made it much easier.
Yeah, very much so. So you started answering the question a little bit, Harry, but I'd like to ask it specifically. What do you think are key traits that distinguish successful salespeople from the rest?
I'd say the number one thing that is probably missed the most is listening. You
Mm,
know, we all focus in sales. What is the pitch, right? What are our products? What are our services? We become walking brochures, and so many miss the nuances of listening. So if we can get that skill worked out, because I've gone on hundreds, if not thousands, of sales calls and over the years, and I've picked up things that sales reps have just not picked up on. Have you noticed? Did you notice that? It's like, no, I didn't notice. Did you notice the little tone in their voice, how that shifted, or the little hesitancy? That would be key. But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of others that would get us going here. So that would be my start. What's your follow up to that? Do you think that one's important, Michael?
what'd you say, Harry?
I wasn't listening. I was already thinking about what I was going to say, right?
I was listening to respond, Harry. I mean, that's
Right.
number one common sales trait. I was only listening, thinking about what I was going to say next or ask you next. I guess you gave us a tip on listening there. Did, I actually had a conversation earlier today, no joke, with one of America's leading experts on listening.
Okay.
And she does coach salespeople because she also has discovered that many salespeople are deficient in that area. And it's because many people aren't really committed to improving their listening skill. So
Hmm.
I think it's really important, Harry, what you said there. And then I would add on follow up. I find
Mm-hmm.
that many salespeople, when they get busy, their follow up tends to decrease. And that's a key trait of successful salespeople is they always follow up. They never neglect it. They put it right up there with every other sales activity, and they generally do better.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. In fact, there are dozens of deals I know that I've won over the years just because I followed up, even if it was a year or two later, right? Where someone is just not ready. I was just talking to someone today that they had a conversation with someone 4 years ago, and the person was, not interested. And then he threw out the bait again, so to speak. The person didn't respond. Within a couple of weeks, though, he sent an email and said, "You know what? I think we're ready to talk about, this topic that I thought they were ready 4 years ago." But people buy on their own time frame, and if we're not there, like as you mentioned, if we're not there following up periodically, somebody else will be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How can a business owner who doesn't know how to sell be successful?
I think everyone knows one way or another how to sell. They might talk themselves out of it that they don't think that they're a sales professional. But let's just say that they have absolutely no skills at all when it comes to asking for the order or asking for the next step or putting it in the calendar. What kind of customer service are they providing? Right? So I liken it to an Uber driver, if we've all gotten into a car driven by an Uber driver, more than one, you can recognize the difference. Some cars are so clean, so spotless. They'll offer water, they'll give you your choice of music. Some will give breath mints. It's amazing at the customer service level. And yet, are they selling? Would you think that they're selling? I think they are. I think they're selling you that they're going to get a great review from you that's going to help their business. And then if you're in that area again next time, you're going to look for them. So providing outstanding customer service has always been a huge win in growing people's business. And then with a little bit of coaching, asking for the business, simple things, you'll find that your business can prosper even though you might think that you weren't cut out, so to speak, for sales. I've seen it. Have you?
Yeah, two great nuggets there, Harry. One is maybe you're better than you actually think, and you should stop saying that you don't understand sales or you can't sell. You've probably been selling and persuading and influencing people throughout your life, and it didn't recognize it as such. And two, start with service. If you want to focus on excellent service as a beginning, that's a great way to start. And then let other people become salespeople for you, because I think that's what happens. If you're in a car like that, where you get treated that way by an Uber driver, you're going to tell somebody about it because it's so remarkable. And when you are remarkable, it's more likely that people will remark about you, and that may drive business your way. So I think that's terrific, Harry.
Yeah, I like it. It's like creating raving fans. There's probably some book that was written, but I remember that expression, and it's just it's great because you get your clients acting like raving fans, like you mentioned. They're going to tell others. James Muir was the author of the book I was talking about, The Perfect Close, earlier in our conversation. I just want to give him credit for helping on that next step thing.
Got it. All right. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to close here with one more question, Harry. Why did you write a book on sales when there are so many sales books out there? Some people would say the world doesn't need another sales book, and yet you wrote another sales book. Why?
Did you hear me say that? I mean, that is exactly what I said, and I said this probably 10 or 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to myself. The world did not need another sales book. But what I didn't realize that everybody has an audience. We have our fans. We have people that look up to us. So I owed it to them. And I really was thinking about people who are decent people, who are not the obnoxious, money hungry, self-serving individuals who don't think they stand a chance in sales. Because when I got into sales, I saw some of those people and I said, I'm not like that. Will I succeed? And I remember riding in my car saying, no one can outserve me. That I have going for me. So I figured that I could share that idea, that concept, that we can sell and grow our business by just serving and asking for the order. I mean, very simple things. People love servant-minded people. Who would you rather do business with? Someone that's servant-minded or someone that's all about self-promotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason I wrote the book. I figured a few people might like it, and I was there to help them.
Great. Well, I think the world always needs another sales book when you have a different angle and it's coming from the heart, which I know your book, Selling with Dignity, is. And so I've bought the book, and I hope my viewers will buy the book as well. So, Harry, thank you very
Awesome.
much for sharing time with us today.
It's been great. Really appreciate what you're doing. And, this all drives the economic engine, right? Helping people be better in sales helps businesses, it helps families. At the end of the day, this is a great place to listen and learn. So thank you, Michael, for doing what you're doing.
Oh, you're very welcome, Harry. I appreciate it. And we will see you again on another time.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again.